The council station hung like a silver jewel above the neutral planet, its massive structure rotating slowly against the star-strewn blackness. Ships of all shapes and sizes glided in and out of the docking bays, each carrying delegates from dozens of different worlds. The hum of distant engines mixed with the chatter of alien voices in languages that were musical, harsh, or entirely unrecognizable. Commander Alex Hart stepped out of the Earth delegation shuttle, taking a deep breath as he looked at the vast assembly hall ahead. Humans had only recently joined the Interstellar Council, and while they had gained respect for their ingenuity and determination, they were still considered newcomers by many older species. Alex felt that weight. Every step he took through the hall reminded him that the future of Earth's influence in the galaxy depended on him. The air shimmered as a sleek ship approached from the docking bay, its surface smooth and reflective like liquid metal. It moved with elegance and authority. Alex's eyes followed it as it glided toward the main entrance. He had been warned about this diplomat, Valora. She was famous or infamous across half the galaxy. Stories described her as intelligent, beautiful, and utterly persuasive. She had a reputation for bending entire councils to her will, for convincing others that her plans were in everyone's best interest, even when they weren't. Many feared her. Some admired her. But no one openly opposed her and lived to tell the tale. The doors of her ship opened, and Valora stepped out. Her presence was magnetic. She was tall, with a slender frame, but every movement carried confidence. Her skin shimmered with a subtle iridescence, reflecting the station's lights like a living jewel. Eyes, deep and intelligent, scanned the hall. She smiled, not warmly, but in a way that made it clear she expected compliance. Alex observed her quietly. He had heard the rumors, but seeing her in person was different. She was composed, unafraid, and radiated authority. Most delegates around the hall shifted in their seats, some leaning forward in awe, others whispering to each other. Valora's reputation preceded her, and the energy in the room changed. The council session began. Delegates from hundreds of species gathered, their voices translating into common galactic speech through the station's universal translators. Valora approached the main podium. When she spoke, her voice was calm but commanding, echoing across the chamber. "Esteemed delegates," she began, "I bring before you a proposal that will ensure the prosperity of not only my species but the entire council. A new world has been discovered in the Xylar system. Its resources are abundant, and my people have the experience to manage it effectively. Cooperation, of course, is in the best interest of all." Her words were smooth, persuasive, and deliberate. She smiled at the assembly, her gaze lingering on each group of delegates just long enough to make them feel special, but not so long as to lose control of the room. Many species nodded, clearly impressed. Valora's plan seemed reasonable at first glance. After all, a new planet, resources, and the promise of prosperity were enticing to any civilization. Alex, however, remained silent. He listened carefully, noting every detail, every nuance of her argument. There was charm in her speech, but he sensed the underlying intent. Valora wanted to dominate this planet's resources, not share them fairly. The council might see opportunity. He saw potential disaster. When she concluded, a few delegates immediately voiced support, praising her foresight and leadership. Others hesitated, uncertain of the implications. The session chair, a multi-limbed alien with translucent skin, asked if there were any objections or comments. Alex stood. He adjusted his simple, functional uniform, a stark contrast to the elaborate attire of most alien delegates. He cleared his throat. "Esteemed council members," he began. His voice was steady, firm, and carried across the chamber. "While the resources of this new planet are valuable, we must consider the consequences of unilateral control. We cannot ignore the rights of other species, nor the long-term effects on the planetary ecosystem." A murmur ran through the hall. Humans were new to the council, and few had spoken with such directness before. Many delegates exchanged glances, unsure how to react. Valora's eyes narrowed slightly, a flicker of surprise crossing her composed face. Alex continued. A shared approach, with oversight from the Council, ensures fairness and stability. It prevents exploitation, prevents conflict, and respects the balance of interstellar law. No single species should claim dominion over this planet without cooperation from others. Valora's smile returned, colder this time. And you propose, human, that your species should oversee this cooperation? Or merely advise? Surely you understand that without experienced management, such a planet would fall into chaos. Alex met her gaze evenly. Humans are not here to dominate or exploit. We are here to ensure fairness. Experience is important, yes, but so is ethical stewardship. And that is something we will insist upon, for the good of all council members. The chamber grew tense. Some delegates whispered among themselves. Many were impressed by the human's courage, standing firm in the face of Valora's intimidating presence. Others were uncertain, still influenced by Valora's charisma. Valora tilted her head, as if studying him. I see. You are unafraid. Bold, perhaps reckless. But we shall see if your confidence matches your knowledge. She gestured to her aides, who began passing documents and holographic maps across the council chamber. Detailed plans of resource extraction, transport logistics, and population management appeared before the delegates. Here, Valora said, are the calculations and projections. Any council member can see that my species has the capability and the vision to manage this planet effectively. Are you prepared to argue against facts with ideals? Alex leaned forward slightly. Facts are important, yes, but facts alone do not ensure justice or sustainability. Your calculations assume unilateral control, with little consideration for other civilizations or the planet itself. That is not a fair or responsible approach. The council murmured again. The tension in the room was palpable. Valora's reputation as a diplomat who could sway anyone seemed challenged for the first time. She raised a hand, and the murmurs quieted. You are brave, human. I will give you that. Few have ever stood against me without hesitation. But bravery is not wisdom. Your position may be admirable, but it will not change the Council's decision if it lacks support. Alex nodded. Then, I will work to earn that support. Not through fear, charm, or influence, but through reason, evidence, and fairness. That is the human way. Valora's eyes gleamed with interest. She had faced many who tried to oppose her, and most crumbled quickly. But this human was different. Calm, unflinching, strategic. She recognized that intelligence and courage were combined in a way she had rarely encountered. The council session continued for hours. Valora presented her plan in detail, while Alex countered each point with logic and alternative proposals. Delegates began to pay attention not just to Valora's charm, but to the human's reasoning. Small alliances began forming quietly among species that had previously been undecided. By the end of the day, the vote on the proposal was postponed. The council needed more discussion, more time to consider the human perspective. Valora excused herself with a graceful nod, her expression carefully neutral, though her eyes betrayed a spark of frustration. As the delegates filtered out of the chamber, Alex approached a window overlooking the stars. The station rotated slowly beneath him, and countless ships moved in the void beyond. He felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. One human voice had managed to slow the momentum of a diplomat who was considered unstoppable, but he knew the real challenge was only beginning. A soft chime echoed behind him. Valora's voice came from the communicator on his wrist. Commander Hart, this is not over. I respect your courage. I respect your clarity. But do not think for a moment that this will end. Without a battle of wits, I will see you again. Alex smiled faintly. I would expect nothing less. The stars outside seemed endless, filled with possibilities, and for the first time, Alex felt the weight of what humans could achieve not through domination, but through integrity, intelligence, and unwavering courage. He turned back to the council chamber, ready for the challenges ahead. The council chamber was quieter than usual the next morning. Delegates from dozens of species whispered in clusters, exchanging opinions about the human who had dared to challenge Valora. Commander Alex Hart walked through the corridors of the massive station, his boots echoing softly against the metallic floor. He had spent the night reviewing Valora's plan, mapping every point where her calculations assumed unilateral control. He had found dozens of potential weaknesses not just in her plan, but in her approach. Alex knew that Valora was intelligent and cunning. She would not ignore a human who had stood firm against her in front of hundreds of witnesses. In fact, he expected her to test him further, to probe for weaknesses, to see if he could be manipulated or intimidated. Humans had a reputation for ingenuity, yes, but also for stubbornness. Valora likely assumed stubbornness could be exploited. He arrived at the council cafeteria, a massive dome filled with artificial sunlight and the scent of countless alien foods. He found an empty table and spread out his notes. Holo screens projected statistics, maps, and environmental data from the new planet. Alex worked quietly, his mind racing with strategies. A subtle vibration on his wrist drew his attention. Valora's communicator had sent a message. Commander Hart, I will join you for discussion. Your analysis intrigues me, but I wish to test the strength of your reasoning. I will arrive in 5 minutes. Alex glanced at his notes, then at the empty chairs around him. A part of him wanted to prepare an elaborate trap, to prove that humans could outwit even the most clever diplomat. But he knew Valora would respect truth and logic more than theatrics. He simply arranged his data and waited. The doors slid open with a soft hiss. Valora entered, her presence filling the room as if the air itself acknowledged her authority. Her eyes, sharp and calculating, met Alex's. She smiled, a hint of amusement in the curve of her lips. Commander Hart, she said smoothly, I must admit, your performance yesterday was unexpected. Most delegates would have bent under my guidance, but you resisted. Bold, perhaps even reckless. Alex gestured to the seat opposite him. Have a seat, Valora. Let's discuss this calmly. No audience, no theatrics, just the facts. Valora tilted her head, considering him. Then, without a word, she sat gracefully. Very well. Let's begin. Alex started by laying out his main concerns. He showed environmental data from the planet, delicate ecosystems, rare minerals that could be ruined by unregulated extraction, and the presence of intelligent microbial life that could be harmed by rapid industrialization. Your plan, Alex said, assumes immediate, full-scale exploitation. That would give your species complete control. Yes, but at what cost? Other species could be affected. The planet itself could be destabilized. Are you prepared to take responsibility for that? Valora leaned back, her eyes narrowing slightly. Responsibility is often subjective. My species is capable of careful management. We have experience. Experience matters more than abstract concerns. Alex shook his head. Experience alone is not enough. Ethics, cooperation, and consideration of other species' interests matter too. That is what the Council expects. Ignoring these principles could damage relations for centuries. Valora's smile returned, sharper this time. And you think humans are the arbiters of ethics? Do you believe your species is immune to mistakes? Alex met her gaze evenly. We are not immune, but we try to hold ourselves accountable. That is the difference. The diplomat paused, clearly assessing him. Interesting. Most who face me rely on fear or charm. You rely on logic. Bold and unusual. The conversation continued for hours. Valora tested Alex with subtle psychological tactics, trying to unsettle him. She presented hypothetical scenarios, exaggerating potential crises, to see if he would overreact. She offered seemingly generous compromises, designed to manipulate him into agreeing to her plan. Alex countered each point calmly, pointing out flaws, suggesting alternatives, and emphasizing fairness and long-term consequences. He remained polite, yet firm. He refused to be drawn into emotional reactions or personal attacks. Valora's expression shifted slightly over time. At first, she seemed amused. Then, hints of frustration crept in. For the first time in her career, she faced someone who would not be swayed by intimidation or charm. Alex was not afraid of her presence, her reputation, or her arguments. At one point, Valora leaned forward, her voice soft but sharp. "Commander, do you truly believe you can convince the Council to delay or reject my proposal? Do you understand the power you face?" Alex responded without hesitation. "I am not here to intimidate or oppose you for the sake of opposition. I am here to ensure fairness and cooperation. If the Council sees that my reasoning is sound, then they will act accordingly. That is the human approach. Reason over fear, principles over influence." Valora studied him, her eyes narrowing in thought. "You are persistent, unyielding. Some might call it foolishness. Others might call it courage. Perhaps it is both." As the discussion drew to a close, Alex stood and gathered his notes. "I appreciate your time, Valora. But know this. Humans will not allow manipulation or exploitation to go unchallenged. We respect logic, fairness, and clear boundaries. You may find that your usual tactics are less effective with us." Valora rose gracefully, her smile returning, more controlled this time. "Noted. Commander, I will consider our discussion. But do not assume that persistence alone will win your arguments. Power, influence, and alliances matter as well. You may find that principles are tested more harshly than you imagine." Alex nodded. "Then we shall see. But remember, integrity is a kind of power, too." Valora left quietly, her footsteps light against the floor. Alex watched her go, feeling a strange mixture of relief and anticipation. She was formidable, intelligent, and unrelenting, but he knew he had made an impression, and he also knew the Council would take note of his stance. Later that evening, Alex returned to the Council archives, a massive library filled with data streams from across the galaxy. He pored over records of past disputes, previous Council votes, and environmental reports from planets that had been exploited. He identified patterns, weaknesses, and strategies that could be used to influence undecided delegates fairly. Hours passed. As the artificial sun dimmed in the station dome, he allowed himself a brief rest. His mind, however, never stopped turning. Valora would return, and she would test him again. This was only the first stage. Humans had a reputation for persistence, but even persistence without preparation could be dangerous. He had to be ready. The next day, the Council reconvened. Valora entered first, her presence commanding attention as always. Delegates watched with interest, many curious about the human who had stood against her. Alex entered shortly after, calm and composed, carrying his notes and data projections. He felt the quiet anticipation of the chamber. Valora began her presentation once more, revising her plans slightly to account for yesterday's discussion. She emphasized efficiency, the importance of experience, and the potential benefits for multiple species. Her words were polished, persuasive, and strategically designed to sway opinion. When it was Alex's turn, he addressed the Council directly. "Esteemed delegates, the concerns raised yesterday remain valid. The planet in question is fragile, and the proposed plan relies heavily on one species' unilateral control. While experience is valuable, cooperation and ethical management are paramount. Humans are new to the Council, but our perspective prioritizes fairness, sustainability, and long-term stability. These principles benefit every species, not just one." The room fell silent. Some delegates whispered in agreement, impressed by his clarity. Others nodded, seeing the logic in his arguments. Valora's eyes studied him carefully, recognizing the growing influence of his reasoning. For the first time, Valora faced a challenge that required more than charm or intimidation. She had to consider strategy, negotiation, and persuasion all on equal terms with the human's principles. As the day drew to a close, the Council decided to postpone a vote further, to allow for more debate and investigation. Valora left quietly, her expression unreadable but her mind clearly working. Alex, meanwhile, felt a sense of cautious optimism. He had not defeated her, but he had shown the power of human integrity, reason, and courage. And in the vast council chamber, that was already a small victory. That night, Alex reflected on the day's events. He realized that this was only the beginning. Valora would continue to test him, to challenge him, and to attempt influence, but he also knew that humans had something unique. The ability to set clear boundaries, to insist on fairness, and to act with unwavering courage. And for the first time, he felt confident that even against a diplomat considered unstoppable, humanity could stand tall. The council chamber glimmered under the soft glow of the artificial sun, its high dome reflecting the colors of hundreds of alien species gathered in anticipation. Today was crucial. Delegates had spent days reviewing the data, discussing the potential consequences of Valora's proposal, and quietly aligning themselves with others. The air buzzed with tension, excitement, and curiosity. Commander Alex Hart walked into the chamber with measured steps, his uniform neat, his eyes calm but alert. He carried a stack of datapads and notes, evidence and reasoning carefully prepared to support his stance. Behind him, a few junior Earth delegates followed, impressed and nervous about the growing importance of humans in galactic affairs. Valora was already at the podium, her posture flawless, her expression composed, but her eyes betrayed focus and calculation. She scanned the chamber, catching the attention of delegates from powerful species, her presence commanding immediate respect. She had already anticipated today's discussions would be tougher. A human had challenged her once, and that human had not only survived but influenced the council. Valora cleared her throat, and the room hushed. "Esteemed delegates," she began, "we meet once more to deliberate on the Xylar system's newly discovered world. I present a plan that ensures the resources are utilized efficiently and with expertise. My species has the knowledge, the organization, and the experience to manage this process." Her voice was smooth, persuasive, and sharp. She projected holographic images of the planet, maps of resource deposits, projections of industrial growth, and simulations of population settlement. Many delegates murmured in admiration. The detail and foresight were impressive. Alex stepped forward when it was his turn. He glanced around the chamber, meeting eyes from multiple species. Some were skeptical, others curious. Many had already been influenced by his calm reasoning in previous sessions. "Esteemed council members," Alex began, "the planet before us is rich in resources, yes, but it is also delicate. Rapid industrialization could disrupt its ecosystems, harm local life forms, and create conflict among neighboring civilizations. While experience is important, it is not sufficient. Oversight, cooperation, and ethical planning are equally critical." Valora's gaze sharpened. "You speak of ethics and cooperation, human. But have you considered that hesitation can cause lost opportunities? Delay can lead to resource depletion by less scrupulous species. Efficiency and expertise prevent chaos." Alex remained calm. Efficiency without fairness is not progress. Expertise without accountability is not leadership. Cooperation ensures that every species benefits, prevents resentment, and creates long-term stability. That is what the Council must prioritize. The debate intensified. Valora presented more complex arguments, using detailed simulations and historical examples of planets managed successfully by her species. She tried to overwhelm the Council with facts, numbers, and precise planning. Delegates listened, impressed by the data but increasingly aware of Alex's counterpoints. Alex responded with equal precision. He pointed out environmental risks, overlooked in her models, potential conflicts between species, and ethical concerns that her simulations could not quantify. He suggested a phased approach, shared management with oversight from multiple species, regular evaluations, and protective measures for the planet's ecosystems. The chamber buzzed with whispers. Some delegates nodded, quietly discussing the merits of Alex's proposals. Others looked toward Valora, noting her usually unshakable composure faltering ever so slightly. She had underestimated the influence of a human who combined courage with logic. Valora adjusted her strategy. She leaned closer to the podium, her voice softer, almost conversational. "Commander Hart, you have convinced some delegates that humans should be involved in the decision. Very well. But tell me, how will your species prevent conflict when multiple interests collide? How will you ensure cooperation in a galaxy where ambition is often stronger than principles?" Alex's eyes met hers directly. "We cannot control ambition, but we can create systems that encourage collaboration and fairness. Oversight, transparency, and accountability are key. Delegates must see that decisions are guided by reason and ethics, not coercion or charm." Valora studied him in silence for a moment. Then she smiled, part respect, part challenge. "You are clever, human. You think clearly and act boldly. But cleverness alone does not guarantee success. Alliances, influence, and perception often outweigh truth in council decisions." Alex nodded. "True. Influence matters. But influence earned through respect, fairness, and logical reasoning lasts longer than influence gained through fear or charm. Humans may be new, but our approach is effective. We do not seek to dominate. We seek to ensure justice." A tense silence followed as delegates considered his words. Slowly, support began to shift. Several species that had been undecided or leaning toward Valora now asked questions, seeking clarification on his phased approach and shared management plan. They were drawn not just to his reasoning, but to his calm courage. Valora realized she needed to act. She introduced a surprise. Classified data from other planets her species had managed. The data suggested her methods had succeeded without major conflict, though some details were ambiguous. She hoped this evidence would tip the balance back in her favor. Alex reviewed the data quickly, his eyes scanning for inconsistencies. He noticed omissions, selective reporting, and small but critical failures glossed over in the presentation. "Esteemed council members," he said, "while this data highlights successes, it also hides failures. Selective presentation does not create transparency. We must consider the full picture before making a decision that affects multiple species." The chamber murmured again. Delegates leaned in, intrigued by his insight. Valora's eyes flickered, showing the first real sign of frustration. She had expected her data to dominate the discussion, but Alex's careful reasoning had anticipated this and exposed the gaps. The debate continued for hours. Valora introduced new simulations, attempted to sway undecided delegates through subtle pressure, and appealed to their desire for efficiency and growth. Alex countered each point with calm logic, presenting alternatives that balanced progress with fairness. By midday, it was clear to the council that the vote would not be simple. Both Valora and Alex had presented compelling arguments. Delegates realized the decision required careful consideration, not just acceptance of authority or charisma. During a short recess, Alex stepped into a quiet corridor. Junior Earth delegates gathered around him, whispering their admiration and concern. "Commander," one said, "she's testing you harder than anyone we've seen. Are you sure you can hold your ground?" Alex smiled faintly. "We are not here to compete with her. We are here to ensure fairness, reason, and cooperation. That is our advantage. Humans are not easily intimidated when principles are clear." Meanwhile, Valora consulted privately with her aides. Her strategy shifted. She realized that intimidation and charm alone would not work. She needed persuasion grounded in facts, alliances, and subtle negotiation. For the first time, she faced a human as a true equal, someone who would not bend or break under pressure. The council reconvened. Valora's tone was more measured, her arguments carefully framed to appeal to logic rather than influence. Alex responded with clarity, emphasizing that long-term stability required shared responsibility, oversight, and ethical consideration. Delegates asked questions directly to him, many of which had previously been posed to Valora. Alex answered calmly and honestly, never dismissing concerns, never raising his voice. Each answer built credibility and trust. By the end of the day, the council decided to conduct a preliminary vote, not to finalize the decision, but to gauge support and gather more feedback. The results were surprising. A significant number of delegates now favored Alex's phased, cooperative approach. Some species that had been loyal to Valora shifted cautiously, impressed by the humans' combination of courage, reasoning, and fairness. Valora left the chamber quietly, her expression composed but thoughtful. She realized that this human had changed the dynamics of the council. He was not just a challenger. He was a strategist, an influencer, and a force to be reckoned with. Alex returned to his quarters that evening, exhausted but resolute. He knew the real test was still ahead. Valora would not give up. She would return with new tactics, alliances, and strategies designed to regain influence. But for the first time, he felt that humans could hold their own in a council dominated by centuries of experience, power, and diplomacy. As he reviewed his notes, he reflected on the principles that guided him. Fairness, courage, transparency, and reason. These were not just ideals, they were tools, as powerful as any weapon or strategy. And in a galaxy where influence often overshadowed ethics, humans had something unique: the ability to set clear boundaries and stand by them. The stars outside the station shimmered with endless possibilities. Alex knew that the upcoming negotiations would test every skill he had. But he also knew this: even against a diplomat considered unstoppable, humans could shape the future through intelligence, integrity, and unwavering courage. The battle of influence had only begun, and the galaxy was watching. The council chamber was silent, the kind of silence that made every movement echo like a drumbeat. Today was the final session before the council would vote on the future of the newly discovered planet in the Xylar system. Delegates from dozens of species filled the room, their expressions a mix of anticipation, curiosity, and caution. All eyes were on two figures: Valora, the alien diplomat whose influence had swayed entire councils in the past, and Commander Alex Hart, the human who had stood unflinchingly against her every argument. Valora stood at the podium, her posture immaculate, her iridescent skin glinting under the chamber lights. She exuded calm authority, but her eyes betrayed the slightest hint of tension. She had spent weeks analyzing Alex's arguments, anticipating every move, refining her strategy to reclaim her dominance. Yet, she knew that this human was unlike any opponent she had ever faced: calm, clever, and courageous. Alex had already shifted the council's perception in subtle but irreversible ways. Alex entered the chamber quietly, carrying a datapad filled with updated environmental projections, ethical analyses, and proposed governance structures. His steps were measured, his presence composed. And yet there was a quiet determination in the way he moved. Delegates whispered among themselves, impressed by the human who dared to challenge Valora openly and persistently. The session began with Valora addressing the council. "Esteemed delegates," she said smoothly, "we meet for the final deliberation on the Xylar planet. My proposal remains the most efficient and capable method to utilize its resources. My species has experience, structure, and the foresight to manage this planet successfully. I urge you to consider the benefits of decisive action." She presented a new set of simulations, showing faster industrial development, projected economic growth, and models of population settlement. Each frame was polished and precise, designed to convince the council that her plan was both practical and inevitable. Alex waited for her to finish. When his turn came, he stepped forward and addressed the council with calm authority. "Esteemed delegates, the planet before us is indeed rich in resources, but it is also delicate. Rapid development without oversight risks environmental damage, conflict among civilizations, and long-term instability. While Valora's plan emphasizes efficiency, it overlooks fairness and cooperation, which are essential for lasting success." Some delegates nodded. Others leaned forward, listening intently. Valora's eyes narrowed slightly. She had anticipated this response, but Alex's calm delivery carried more weight than expected. He continued, "Our proposal is not about slowing progress. It is about ensuring that all species benefit, and that the planet remains healthy for future generations. A phased approach, with shared oversight and accountability, protects both the environment and the interests of the Council. This method values experience, yes, but it also values ethics and collaboration. Valora interjected smoothly, her voice as soft as silk yet sharp as a blade. Commander Hart, you speak of ethics and fairness, but do you understand that delay and hesitation can allow other species or natural disasters to compromise the planet? Speed and efficiency are essential to avoid loss. Are humans prepared to bear the consequences of inaction? Alex met her gaze steadily. We are prepared to act responsibly. We will not allow fear of inaction to justify exploitation or domination. True leadership is not measured by speed alone, but by the wisdom and fairness of decisions. That is the principle humans bring to this council. Valora's eyes glittered. For the first time, she seemed to reassess her approach. All her previous tactics, charm, intimidation, persuasion through authority, had failed to sway Alex. She realized that this human would not compromise principles. Even under pressure, the debate escalated. Valora attempted to appeal to delegates with promises of efficiency and growth. She highlighted past successes of her species, emphasizing speed and results. Yet Alex countered with clear evidence, showing past failures hidden in the details, highlighting risks overlooked in her models, and offering practical solutions that balanced progress with ethical responsibility. Delegates began asking more questions, turning to Alex for clarification. Some of them had initially supported Valora, drawn by her charisma and reputation, but Alex's calm, logical reasoning and commitment to fairness had begun to sway opinion. Humans were new to the council, yes, but Alex's arguments resonated deeply with delegates who valued long-term stability over immediate gains. Valora realized that subtlety was required. She adjusted her tone, presenting revised simulations that included cooperative governance. Yet she carefully framed these simulations to suggest that the human approach might slow development. She hoped to raise doubt, forcing delegates to question whether Alex's plan could deliver results. Alex anticipated this. He responded clearly, showing that his phased, cooperative approach could achieve progress while safeguarding the planet's ecosystems and preventing interstellar conflicts. His data emphasized both speed and fairness, demonstrating that compromise did not mean sacrificing effectiveness. The council session stretched for hours. Delegates questioned, debated, and considered the merits of both approaches. Valora attempted a final tactic, highlighting potential risks if the council delayed a decision, subtly implying that indecision might lead to disaster. Alex addressed this calmly. No species benefits from rushed decisions that ignore ethics or cooperation. Risks exist in every plan, but risks managed responsibly protect all civilizations. Hasty decisions made without consideration of consequences do not prevent disaster, they invite it. Valora paused, studying him. There was a long silence, the kind that made the chamber feel suspended in time. She realized that she could not intimidate this human, nor could she outcharm him. Alex had demonstrated a rare combination of intelligence, courage, and moral clarity. She understood something profound. Humans were not easily manipulated. They were principled, and they would stand firm when necessary. When the council reconvened for a final discussion before the vote, Valora requested a private meeting with Alex. She stepped aside from the podium, her posture still regal, and motioned for him to approach. Alex followed, walking carefully but confidently. Valora spoke quietly, so only he could hear. Commander Hart, you have challenged me in ways no one has before. Your reasoning is strong, your courage admirable. But tell me, do you truly think your approach will succeed? Do you believe the Council will follow a human's principles over the efficiency and experience my species offers? Alex met her gaze without hesitation. I do not rely on assumptions, Valora. I rely on fairness, transparency, and reason. The Council will decide based on what is right, not what is powerful or persuasive. Humans respect principles, and we set clear boundaries when necessary. That is our strength. Valora studied him in silence. For a moment, she seemed contemplative, almost vulnerable. Then she smiled, a mix of respect and reluctant admiration. You are unlike any opponent I have faced. You have not sought to dominate or manipulate. Yet you have influenced more than many could achieve with power alone. I must acknowledge this. Alex nodded. Thank you. But influence is not the goal. The goal is fairness, cooperation, and the protection of the planet and all its inhabitants. That is what matters. Valora tilted her head, a subtle shift in her posture that signaled recognition. Then we shall see. The Council will vote soon. But know this, human. I will respect your stance. Even if I do not agree with it personally, I have learned that humans are capable of something rare, setting clear boundaries and standing by them, even under pressure. The Council vote began. Each delegate cast their decision, considering both Valora's efficient plan and Alex's cooperative, ethical approach. When the results were tallied, the outcome was clear. The Council overwhelmingly supported Alex's proposal for phased, shared management with oversight from multiple species. Valora acknowledged the results gracefully, her expression composed, but her mind clearly processing the implications. She approached Alex after the session, her voice quieter than usual. Commander Hart, you have changed my perception of humans. You have demonstrated that courage, logic, and integrity can influence decisions more than power or persuasion alone. I respect that. Alex offered a small smile. Thank you. I respect your expertise, Valora. But humans will always stand for fairness, even when challenged by the most experienced diplomat. Valora nodded. Then we have both learned something today. Perhaps this is a beginning. Not just for humans, but for collaboration across the galaxy. As the Council dispersed, Alex looked out at the stars beyond the chamber. The galaxy was vast, full of opportunity and challenge. Humans were newcomers, yes, but their courage, principles, and ingenuity had earned them a place among the stars. He felt a quiet pride, not in victory alone, but in the affirmation of what humanity represented. Reason over fear, fairness over domination, and the strength to set boundaries and uphold them. Valora departed shortly after, her reputation intact, but transformed in subtle ways. She would never underestimate humans again, and as for Alex, he had proven that even in a universe filled with powerful diplomats and cunning species, humanity's unique qualities, courage, integrity, and clarity of purpose could shape the course of interstellar history. The Council station rotated slowly above the planet, its lights reflecting off the hull like a beacon of hope. A new era had begun. Not through domination, but through collaboration, wisdom, and the human ability to stand firm for what was right. Commander Alex Hart returned to his quarters, exhausted but triumphant. He had faced one of the galaxy's most formidable diplomats, endured hours of debate, and emerged with principles intact and respected. Looking at the stars, he knew this was only the beginning. Humanity had much to offer, and the galaxy had just begun to understand what humans could achieve when they acted with courage, clarity, and integrity. And somewhere deep in her quarters, Valora reflected quietly, knowing that this human had set a standard that would influence her and perhaps the galaxy for years to come. The stars outside shimmered endlessly, full of untold stories, waiting for humans to leave their mark.